Thank you, Agnes. I really appreciate being invited to do this today. This is an important topic, and anything that you learn here today, I hope that you also share with others in your community, because Alzheimer's is pervasive, especially in the southwestern United States. And we all need to be aware of the basics, which is what this will cover today. This is not comprehensive. Please please enter your questions. Agnes will help me at the end to be able to answer them. We also have some times during the presentation when there are questions, multiple choice questions that I'll ask, and you can answer those in the chat as well. And please use your reaction button if it's appropriate. As Agnes said, my name is Elaine Walsh. I am a native Arizonan, and I have a personal connection to Alzheimer's. I'm also a community educator for the Alzheimer's Association of Southern Arizona, which is headquartered in Tucson. I cared for my mother for close to 20 years as a sole caretaker as she progressed through the disease. So I do have a personal connection, and I'm sure many of you do as well. In fact, I think it would be helpful to get a sense of, maybe through the reaction button, how many of you are affected by this disease in your family, close friends, anything along those lines. So we can see if we have personal experience with it. And it looks like quite a few of you. So on this particular program, Understanding Alzheimer's and Dementia, will help to clarify what Alzheimer's is as a form of dementia. It has information from people who are care partners and caregivers. Slight difference between those. Caregivers usually is in the latter stages of the disease. Care partners are in the beginning. Also, any remarks that I make are from my experience as a caregiver to a parent. Being a caregiver to a loved one, partner, spouse is very different, and I do appreciate those differences. I would like you to let Agnes know if you have trouble seeing the video or hearing me at any time, and we will get started. And I'm sorry, the screen is over here. If I look away from you, I apologize. I'm not being disrespectful. So, as I said, today we're going to look at Alzheimer's dementia, realize how Alzheimer's affects the brain. We're going to look at risk factors for Alzheimer's disease, identify stages of the disease, talk about what scientists are doing, what kind of research is being done. And then also I'm going to share resources through the Alzheimer's Association. I really want you to pay close attention to that. I wish that I had taken advantage of more of the resources from the Alzheimer's Association when I was doing caregiving for my mom. They have an amazing amount of resources available. So I like this slide because the impact of Alzheimer's affects everyone around the person who has the disease, not just the person who has it. So we're going to quickly go to the first question. Alzheimer's is in your personal life, as we discussed, and you're hearing about it more and more. Not enough, in my opinion, but we are hearing about it. So let's take a look at what you know about the disease yourself. So how many people are currently living with Alzheimer's? Can you take a look? Let me know your guess. Agnes, if you could give me an idea where everybody's answers are landing.
Oh, we have one respondent that says over 3 million.
Okay.
Another over 3 million. more than 6 million, more than 6 million, 3 million, 11 million, more than 6 million, okay, the responses have ended.
Okay, well, this is a very, very smart group of people because according to the research done by the Alzheimer's Association in 2025, it's more than 6 million. It's over 7 million. So thankfully, not 11 million, but certainly 7 million people in the United States. So you did a great job on that. Now let's look at unpaid care, which I experienced. I'm sure some of you as well. So let me know what your thoughts are about how many people in America are providing unpaid care for people living with Alzheimer's or other dementias. And Agnes, let me know what people think.
We have about 8 million, 8 million, 8 million, 8 million, 8 million, over 11 million, over 11, $14 million, 11, maybe 14, seems like no one cares. $14 million. Okay, the responses have stopped.
Okay. Again, you guys are a very smart group of people. It's over 11 million, but actually, again, according to the newest research, it's over 12 million, nearly 12 million, sorry. I'm sure by the time a few months have gone by, it'll be over 12, but it is quite a few people. And here's the thing too, is that caregiving does cost money. That is something that has a dollar value. The hours of care that caregivers give in 2025 equaled $413 billion. It's a lot of money. As you can see, this disease takes a toll on people physically, mentally, and it has a huge personal impact on the caregivers as well as a financial one. I started taking care of my mom when I was launching a new business. And so I was trying to juggle doing that and taking care of my mom. So I understand the financial impact really. So let's take another look at this. You hear? Hopefully you can hear.
We don't hear any sound.
I'm unsure how to change that. I'm unsure how to change the sound. I apologize, but were you able to actually see the video? Yes, okay. As you can see, the video has not been updated. I gave you some of the updated figures in my presentation, but it's still quite a bit of an impact. The we have another test your knowledge. You guys are up for this because you're very smart. So, Alzheimer's is a normal part of aging. Yes or no? What do we think here?
We have false, 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 false. False, false, false. That's the end of the responses. I'll say false.
Okay. And you and everybody else would be correct. It is false. And I'm glad that people are aware of this now. I know that, again, when my mother was diagnosed, it was not really understood as a disease and not a normal part of aging. It's another question. People younger than age 65 can get Alzheimer's. What do you think? True or false?
True. I see a lot of trues. True, 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 true. Okay, that's the end of the responses. I'll say true.
Yes, it is true. In fact, a good friend of mine who was only 48 when this happened was a best-selling author. She wrote mysteries. She's here in Tucson. And after 7 books, and she was on the bestseller list, she got early onset Alzheimer's and is no longer able to write, and the disease is progressing. She was only 48. So definitely it's true. And many of you have a similar experience, I'm sure. So we're going to hear from an expert. Oh, you can't hear the, okay. You all are unable to hear the video, is that correct? When I play a video.
I believe so. The last one you showed,
Had no
we
sound.
could not hear the sound.
Oh dear.
If you click on the share button and on the side, it should be optimized for video and share sound.
Okay. Okay. All right, I've done that. Thank you for reminding me of that. I forgot. Okay. See.
Dementia is the umbrella term for an individual's
Can you hear
infant
it?
memory, thinking, or reasoning. There are many possible causes
Yes,
of
we
dementia.
can.
Alzheimer's is the most common cause. Other causes of dementia are vascular dementia, which is marked by changes in the blood flow in the blood vessels in the brain. Dementia with Lewy bodies, identified by specific brain changes throughout the brain that include the buildup of a protein known as alpha-synuclein. And frontal temporal dementia, which is marked by brain cell loss in the front sections of the brain or the frontal lobe. Each type of dementia may have distinct characteristics to cause specific behaviors in the individual, but there is also some overlap in behaviors among the types of dementia.
Certainly, having the diagnosis of Lewy body was helpful in our planning because we began to understand where this was coming from in the brain, where otherwise we would not have known. Like we knew something was happening, but what was it? To give it a label actually helped, although it was a big umbrella. It explains some of the characteristics and symptoms that we were experiencing and seeing.
So as they talked about, there are many different causes of dementia, and a correct diagnosis is extremely important, and that does require testing. Sometimes it's challenging to get to find somebody who can help you with this, but there are resources, and I know there are some in Arizona. And again, we're going to talk about the ones that the Alzheimer's Association offers, so keep that in mind.
Certainly.
So I think people these days understand that dementia is a general term. Alzheimer's is the most common type cause of dementia. And as we discussed before, it's not a normal part of aging. It's a progressive brain disease, and it is a type of dementia. And there is a lot of research going on, and we're going to hear from one of the folks who are doing that research.
More than 100 years ago, Dr. Alzheimer described specific changes in the brain, what we now call the formation of plaques and tangles. Alzheimer's is a progressive brain disease that's marked by these two stages and impacts memory, thinking, and behavior. The brain has three main parts: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. Each one plays a role in how the body functions. Alzheimer's disease causes nerve cells to die, which leads to brain tissue loss and causes loss of function and communication between cells. These changes can cause the symptoms of Alzheimer's, such as memory loss, behavioral issues, problems with thinking, planning, and at the end stage, swallowing.
And I don't know if everybody does know that the disease was named for an actual researcher. And many people do already know that you hear about the formation of plaques, but also a lot of times people don't know that it causes the nerve cells to die. And that leads to the shrinkage that you probably have heard about, which is where you get the changes in thinking, memory, and behavior. So this is an important one to talk about, risk factors. And we're going to have another test on this topic. So what are your thoughts? Is it genetics, family history, age?
I have a couple people saying genetics. 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 Another person saying genetics. And it looks like that's the end of the responses.
Okay. Well, you're all correct. It is one of the risk factors. Age is the greatest risk factor. And that's one that we can't do much about every day. I have a birthday coming up in a couple days, so it's really on my mind that age is definitely a risk factor. After 65, the risk doubles for Alzheimer's every 5 years. And then about more than a third of people over the age of 85 are living with the disease. So let's hear from another expert talking about this, about risk factors.
Alzheimer's disease is marked by specific brain changes that result in the clinical changes an individual experiences. That is, changes in memory, thinking, or reasoning. And ultimately, Alzheimer's is fatal. The exact cause for these changes is unknown, but there are some hints as to what may contribute to an individual's risk. Age is the greatest known risk factor for Alzheimer's. And when we look at populations of people, we see an increased risk over the age of 65. However, Alzheimer's is not normal aging. Family history is also a known risk factor. Research has shown that those who have a parent or a sibling with Alzheimer's are more likely to develop the disease, and that risk increases if more than one family member has Alzheimer's. When we talk about the genes involved in Alzheimer's, there are two categories that could potentially be involved: risk genes and deterministic genes. Risk genes increases an individual's risk for developing this disease, but does not guarantee that they will develop Alzheimer's. Deterministic genes, which are rare for Alzheimer's, guarantee that the person will develop the disease.
So I do want to take a moment and reiterate the fact that although Alzheimer's is not a normal part of aging, aging is the greatest risk factor. So there's an important difference there. So this is a look at risk factors for populations in America. Black Americans about twice as likely to as white Americans to have Alzheimer's or another form of dementia. Hispanic Americans are 1.5 times more likely, and almost 2/3 of Americans living with Alzheimer's are women. As you may recall, the risk factor for women is 1 in 5. For men, it's 1 in 10. And women tend to live longer than men, making them more likely to develop Alzheimer's because, as we discussed, age is the highest risk factor. Researchers are looking at genetic differences between men and women to explain this, and that may impact the disease risk in the future. So it is not completely understood yet, but I know that a lot of research is going on and many advances are being made in this. So as we talked about before, age is the greatest risk factor. Family history, risk gene, she did make a differentiation between risk genes and deterministic genes. Those are the two types of genes that are associated with Alzheimer's. And there are parts of our population that are at an increased risk for Alzheimer's. And again, women are at a higher risk than men. This is something that I really am glad that they included in here. As they say, if you know someone with Alzheimer's, you know someone with Alzheimer's. It is not a linear disease that progresses the same for each person. There are stages that are important to know about.
Math, I can't listen to it. And you know, I sit there, I stare at it. It's crazy what numbers I can't deal with anymore. And in some ways, that's the disease to me. The other thing that I increasingly have been struggling with the words, which I've dealt with words my entire life, you know, as an avid reader, as a reporter, as a writer. I struggle with them now.
I'm like an overachiever. And when you're unable to deliver or you're not performing at the same pace that you once did before, that's frustrating. It's frustrating to not know where you place things. It's frustrating to not be able to explain to someone the problems that you're having. You can't articulate it in a way. It's frustrating to read something and you forgot what you read. It's frustrating to continuously have to change your password and you just changed it last week and you're constantly doing the same thing over and over again.
I think the thing that surprises me the most about my dementia is that it is progressive, and I'm finding that I'm forgetting more, and they do memory tests for me all the time at the doctor, and So that becomes a little disconcerting at times, to see my cognitive impairment continue to decline. But again, I really have hope. I don't live really in the future. I can't live in the future. I can't worry about what the future is going to bring. I have to live for today.
All of the people that you heard from in this video are living in the early stages of Alzheimer's. And the symptoms worsen for people. Some symptoms worsen faster than others, depending on the individual. Different places where you are in the disease will create different capabilities and lack of capabilities. On average, a person with Alzheimer's lives from 4 to 8 years after diagnosis, but can live as long as 20 years. My mother lived close to 20 years with Alzheimer's. So there's a great variation. We're going to talk next about the progression of the disease. As you can see from this arrow, it is a continuum. I would say that it's not quite as smooth as this is. It tends to be a bit more erratic, but it does progress. At the beginning, there's biological changes, but perhaps those haven't been noticed by people around the individual yet. And then you get into the early stages of cognitive ability loss. Those are noticeable to others and usually to the person before others. Then we talk about mild, moderate, severe. That's terminology used by doctors a lot of the time and by care homes in determining what kind of assistance you may need. Typically, the mild stages, you may have just some moderate issues, as those people demonstrated they were still able to communicate, and that it interfered, though, with their daily activities and definitely their routines. Then, as things become more pronounced, and again, some person, their pronounced area might be speech, for someone else it might be reading. That's the moderate stage. And then the severe stage is when it gets in the way of activities of daily living, and eventually with things that are almost automatic, like eating or sleeping. And again, these are not evenly divided. You don't spend exactly as much time in mild, moderate, severe. And I'm sure you all understand that, but I did want to mention that. Mild cognitive impairment is the MCI, and I'll explain that. We just talked about the 3 stages, how they're differentiated. And as we said, no 2 individuals experience this the same way. Symptoms do worsen over time. There's no place that happens where someone improves. It's not a disease where people improve and they go back to the way they were. Maybe some of the symptoms are mitigated, or you may find workarounds, but the disease is going to progress no matter what. Although I do want to say something here that was shared with me with the Alzheimer's Association, and it was mentioned by the 3rd person in those videos that we saw. And he mentioned the word hope, which I think is important always. And according to the survey 2025 done by the Alzheimer's Association, up to 4 in 5 of Americans feel optimistic about new Alzheimer's treatments in the next decade. So that is a common feeling among people in the United States. So there is no cure for Alzheimer's. There's nothing you can take to make it go away. There are treatments that can change disease progression. My mother was on one of those for many years. There are non-drug options that can help with some of the symptoms. Treatments can be a pill, a patch, or intravenously. That's changed recently. It used to be just pills. They work for different people in varying degrees. They're not effective for everyone, so you do need to be working with a healthcare professional and talk to them about whether or not a specific treatment is appropriate for you or your loved one. Alzheimer's.org/treatments has up-to-date information. We all get bombarded by the latest article from USA Today or from someone about Alzheimer's, and I'm susceptible to it as anyone. I do think that while exploration is important, the Alzheimer's Association does a very good job of exploring all options and staying on top of research. I say that as someone who relies on them and relied on them, not because I'm an educator. I'm not paid to say that. So I do believe it's true, and they have some wonderful resources to let you know what's actually happening. And on the topic of research,
This is an incredibly exciting time in Alzheimer's and dementia research. The advancements that we've made in the last decade to understand the disease is a continuum, meaning that the biological changes are starting a decade or more before someone is experiencing the changes in the memory and thinking. This sets the stage for possible prevention. The idea that when we have the tools to identify those individuals at the earliest time point, and when we have the interventions to target individuals at that earliest time point, we can intervene to stop or slow the progression of the disease before an individual loses their memories.
Growing evidence indicates that people can reduce their risk of cognitive decline by adopting key lifestyle habits. More and more research shows that factors like exercise, nutrition, and aggressive management of cardiovascular risk factors may impact our ability to slow cognitive decline as we age. And through current studies, we're exploring how certain lifestyle factors may even reduce the risk of developing Alzheimer's and dementia.
A lot of hope does come from the Alzheimer's Association, all the research that is being done. Even though there is not a cure today for the disease, I know in my heart there is going to be a cure one day. And I know we're getting closer for that cure. Because even if you fail in a research study, you learn from that failure in the research study. That failure always brings progression.
I'm going to say something now because usually when I give this presentation in person, people are wondering, well, there's all this money being spent on research. Why isn't there more progress with drug development? It's a really complex disease. It's not even now still fully understood. Multitude of factors contribute to risk. And so there's a lot of areas of study. And hopefully we can start to interrupt the progress of the disease with some of these drug interventions. And some of the promising targets include looking at the buildup of beta amyloids and tau proteins, which are hallmarks of Alzheimer's you've probably heard of. Also looking at inflammation, immune response, metabolic changes, and more. And as I said, looking at lifestyle. They think that it's going to be a combination of medications and devices, much like we have seen progression in terms of many cancers and AIDS. So I think this is an exciting time, and I think that as things are progressing, that we will see breakthroughs that do happen.
It's nice to see the association spearheading in many ways the emphasis on getting the money at the federal level and at the private sector to get the research done so that someday there will be an effective treatment, hopefully cure, hopefully prevention.
And yes, we're going to get into trials which there is information about that here, and there also is information on that on the Alzheimer's website. Clinical trials, clinical studies.
Participating in a clinical study is one way that everyone can get involved in a very direct way in the fight against Alzheimer's disease. And for people who currently have dementia or Alzheimer's disease, there are some additional benefits. You get access to very close medical care. You also may be among the first people to have access to the treatments that will eventually prove to work.
You might hear the phrase negative trial, which means it didn't hit the endpoint. It didn't result in an FDA-approved treatment for the disease. But I think the only negative trial is one that doesn't provide us with valuable information. If the trial is well designed and is a good scientific experiment, we can get extremely valuable data that can help plan the next trial and make it even better than the last one. And it gets you that much closer to that FDA-approved drug, to that effective treatment, and maybe someday even prevention.
By participating in clinical research, you can move us toward methods of treatment and prevention for all those affected by this devastating disease. Alzheimer's Association Trial Match is a free clinical studies matching service for those with dementia, caregivers, and healthy volunteers. To start, simply create a confidential user profile and receive a list of studies that may be a match for you. Don't just hope for a cure, help us find one.
Actually, the biggest obstacle to moving forward is the recruitment and retention of trial participants, not funding. So I would encourage all of you to look into clinical trials and how you can participate. When you do learn about one, share it with other people, because you may not be appropriate for the trial, but someone else in your network, share it on social media, share it in your groups that you belong to, because someone else may be able to do that. And we do need to continue with clinical trials. So again, we've made a lot of progress over the last decade. As I said, when my mother was first diagnosed, there was very little understanding of Alzheimer's. I could not even find a doctor who really did understand it. As I'm going to say it again, we're all needed for clinical studies. I have participated in one. My mother participated in one before she became extremely advanced in her disease. There are drug and non-drug studies, and the trial match is a free matching service. And I love their vision. It's a world without Alzheimer's and all other dementia. And the Alzheimer's Association leads the way. There's actually not its equivalent in terms of depth and breadth in other countries. So they definitely lead the way, even worldwide. So they're a global organization, but they were started here in the United States. There's the 800 number right here for the general organization, but we're going to have another 800 number I'd like you to write down. We can all participate in many ways, and you're going to learn all the ways that you can do that. I cannot say enough about the helpline. I carry cards around, and if I don't have the cards, I have the number written down. Obviously, a lot of people ask about Alzheimer's because they know how long I was a caregiver for my mother, and the fact that I'm very interested in the disease and want to learn more all the time. So I keep this number with me. It is not just a generic phone number. Those are actually trained professionals when you call.
I've had a couple of phone calls that I've been able to make in to the call center. When I've had a couple of quick questions that I wanted to ask. You know, there's been a couple of nights 2 o'clock in the morning, you have questions, you have anxieties, and I was struggling dealing with them, and it's amazing. It was one of the best things I ever did, was keeping the call center on my favorites now. Just to know that there's somebody you can call who is aware of what you're going through.
When I went to the Alzheimer's Association website, which is alz.org, then I was trying to find out more about what is Alzheimer's, what really is this disease, what is younger onset Alzheimer's, what is dementia, is there a cure, how long has it been, how many people are affected by this, where can I go for resources, where can I go for help, what do I do with this? How can I handle this? Is there more people like me out there? Is there someone that I can talk to if I need to? And there I found the support line that's 24 hours a day. And here I found where I can go for workshops, where I can go and read things and postings that people have done, where I can find out what events is happening in the Alzheimer's Association, where I can see how it's affecting people around the globe.
As much of a fan as I am of the 800 number, I failed to mention a couple of things that I know that I would like you to know as well. When you call there are master's level clinicians available around the clock. They're going to give you in-depth care consultations, help you to create a care plan. They do a free of charge care navigation service that's available to families, and the help is available in more than 200 languages. So that's, again, I know I keep talking about it, but it's really a wonderful resource.
Since I've been diagnosed with dementia, the one place that I know I can go to for assistance and help and support is to the Alzheimer's Association. There are people there that I know by name that I can contact if I'm having a difficult time, or if I'm struggling to find some resource, that they will provide that to me.
And here's some ways that you can participate. You can be a volunteer like I am. There's lots of different kinds of volunteers. One thing that we didn't talk about was the support groups. I went to a support group at the beginning of caregiving for my mother, and it made a tremendous difference for me. So there are support groups available, and those are personed by volunteers. You can join the walk. You can do a lot of different things depending on what you're interested in. You can speak out. You can communicate with the lawmakers. I do that quite a bit because I don't think that Alzheimer's is top of mind for everyone who needs to have it top of mind, including our lawmakers. And we've already talked about Trial Match, and this is really easy to use. It says it's there. It's really true. It's free, and you can get into possibly a clinical trial. And the Alzheimer's Association Walk is really an incredible event, and we have one in Tucson every year. So you can participate in that as well. We just went through the summer solstice, the longest day, and one of the books about Alzheimer's is called The 25-Hour Day. So it can feel like quite a long slog when you're in the midst of caregiving or if you have the disease. So I think it's appropriate that this is the day that recognizes Alzheimer's and its effect on people. And now we're open for any questions that you have. I will do my best to answer. May not have the answers. I'll probably refer you in many cases back to the Alzheimer's Association because like I said, they have a lot of resources. So Agnes, what kind of questions do we have?
I do not see any questions yet, but I did put some resources in the chat. I put in the 2025 Alzheimer's disease facts and figures that were
Yes.
discussed.
Thank
So
you.
there's a PDF infographic there.
Good.
I also placed in the chat Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. June is Alzheimer's Brain Awareness Month. This one is specifically for Indigenous people, the infographic, the flyer. So I have those provided from the agency to share. In addition, I have placed in the chat the folks at Banner Health have a Native American Caregiver Circle group. If you're interested and has a link, and there's an upcoming 19th annual Alzheimer's and Dementia in Native American conference that happens every year. It'll be in October. Michelle put in there the Arizona Commission for the Deaf and the Hard of Hearing has partnered with Desert Southwest chapter of the Arizona Alzheimer's Association to provide a free confidential virtual monthly support group for anyone who is deaf or hard of hearing and is caring for someone who has, it just moved, sorry. Anyone who is deaf or hard of hearing and is caring for someone who has Alzheimer's or related dementias. Also for anyone who may be caring for a deaf or hard of hearing person with Alzheimer's or related dementias. ACDHH support groups have ASL, interpreters, and live human generated CART captioning. We do have a question here. At what stages of Alzheimer's is the risk of suicide considered highest?
I do not know an official answer to that. My experience would lead me to believe that at the early stages. There is a point that a person with Alzheimer's does not know that they have Alzheimer's. It's very much an exercise in living in the moment and how they live. So my unprofessional, anecdotal opinion would be at the beginning, based on people I know and my own experience with people. So I hope that that's a good answer, but I would call the 800 number because whenever that topic comes up, I think professional intervention is required to assess it. Any other questions?
I do not see any other questions, but I wanted to provide a comment. This is Agnes Adekai with the Sonoran Center. And my mother-in-law had Alzheimer's. And the challenge for our family, my husband and I, was that she had retired in California and we lived in Arizona. So finding caregiving in another state was a challenge. She and her husband definitely did not want to move to Arizona because it was not their home. They had their home. So for us, we had to manage finding in-home caregiving to the point where she had to go to an assisted living facility because she required 24-hour care. And so I think that many times that is the challenge of caregiving, that not all of us can care for our loved ones in-house and due to a variety of different reasons. And I think it's okay to ask for help and have people come and help provide caregiving assistance if that's available and an option for you. I know it was very exhausting and very challenging for us because we lived a state away, 8 to 9 hours away for any kind of immediate response from us. So that was our experience.
I understand that. I can't imagine. My mother was in Phoenix and I was in Tucson. This is very different, but for many years at the beginning of her disease, it wasn't until the very end. I was up in Phoenix every single weekend. So, but that's 2 hours. It's nothing compared to having someone in another state. There are senior placement folks in every state, every city. So I would recommend that folks look into that as well. Those people can help you without charge to find an appropriate facility. But I'm sorry that you had to go through that. That's very difficult, very difficult. So, any other questions?
Let's see. No other questions, just more resources added to the chat. It said another resource for Alzheimer's and dementia is a website, https colon //lasquared.org.
Okay, that is the website for the International Association for Indian Aging, IA squared.
Thank you very much for that.
Excellent. Excellent. I'm glad that somebody had that resource available to share. Thank you.
And again, we will compile the resources and send them out via email with the recording. And usually that's about a month from now. So they will be added to, you'll be sent an email, but it will also be added to our Circle of Indigenous Empowerment website as a link to our YouTube page. So again, there are a lot of thank yous here, Elaine, for your wonderful presentation. It was very informative and really astounding numbers to the amount of people that have Alzheimer's and caregiving and how much money it costs to provide caregiving, and that seems like women are disproportionately have Alzheimer's more. And so as caregivers and as people who take care of families, we end up, may have to have someone take care of us as we age and later on in life. And so I want to thank all the participants here for joining us for our webinar in June for Alzheimer's Awareness Month. And again, Elaine, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your attention to this important issue. Please share this information with everybody that you know. It's important. Thank you.